Resilience is the trait that we all rely on to overcome fear and trepidation, to experience new chapters in life that are uncertain, and our resilient spirit is responsible for giving us the grace of understanding. The same can be true for the impact of a mentor. According to my friends over at the Annie E. Casey Foundation, 74% of people who say they had a meaningful mentor in their life believe this person meaningfully contributed to their success in life. Meanwhile, 85% of young people who had the consistent approach and support of a mentor believe that that presence in their life and the key relationship has helped them through issues at school, with their education, and in their personal life. Meanwhile, my friends over at Mentor Canada say 78% of young people who were mentored by someone and faced adverse situations were more likely to pursue other and further education rather than 63% of their non-mentored counterparts. This, my friends, shouldn't come as a big surprise to my friend Sean Martin. He grew up in the Bronx housing projects at the height of the crack epidemic. He said he emerged as a beacon of resilience from that experience. He says it taught him to have a sense of ambition. He was raised by a single mom, who he says gave him his sense of grit and ambition to work hard despite the circumstances he grew up in. He initially went the traditional route, went to university, got a job to pay the bills. However, he felt his life had a higher calling. He came to this realization while he was locked up at the age of 29 for 2 years. His journey to entrepreneurial success took a winding road. However, his unwavering belief and determination within himself caused him to found multiple million-dollar businesses in sectors such as marketing, event planning, and real estate. He says it stands as a testament to the vision of determinative success that he has for himself. And Martin joined me this week to discuss why mentoring is such a high priority for him for the next generation, and how he hopes his own individual story of perseverance and grit can serve as a blueprint for other youth in America to follow today. I'm Kevin McShann. Let's have this conversation. Fantastic. Well, Sean, it's great to see you today, my friend. It's great to see you again, and I'm delighted to have a chance to engage in conversation with you, buddy. Thanks for a few minutes, and thanks for being here. It's most appreciated.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Now, Sean, I know that you're a child of the Bronx housing projects, my friend, and you believe that your life is a testament of both perseverance, grit, and commitment to yourself, my friend. So I'm wondering if we could start by you telling me about your journey and the realistic and resilient nature of it, my friend. What are your thoughts there?
Sure. I mean, born and raised in Parkside Projects in the Bronx, the child of an immigrant single mother who migrated here at the young age of 11 from the Dominican Republic with her family, who were seeking a reprieve from a change in government, their dictatorship. I was very fortunate, despite growing up in the turbulent backdrop of that housing projects during the 1990s here in New York, which was one of the deadliest times in the city's history because of the crack cocaine epidemic, excuse me. I still had love. We still had family. We still had friendships. We still had laughter. So as a kid, not really realizing that that was going on in the background, but it being your normal circumstance, um, I think there's a story to tell behind that. We don't know the chaos that we're growing up in if we have the presence of love. And we've talked about that on our phone call, which is why you're so powerful, because you had the presence of love and support from your family. So despite the trying times that were outside of our walls, inside of the walls, it was safe. We had food to eat, we had love to give, and all of that was just a challenge that fortunately I was able to overcome because of those internal structures in the household. So despite being the child of someone who muscled their way through college and despite the language barrier, graduated college on time, my mother always instilled education. So it came naturally for me. And I graduated college, but there was always that pull of the streets because the streets are sexy, I love to say. There's a reason that hip hop is so popular is because of that danger. And when you come from it, you don't see it as that. But it was. And we had a lot of friends that didn't have fathers or, their fathers were locked away because they were dealing drugs or involved in crime. And there were a lot of single mothers raising their children. But again, I can only say that the thing that separates me is the love that I was fortunate enough to have and the work ethic that was instilled in me by my mother, who got up and went to work every day, despite a lot of my neighbors being reliant on government assistance. So I thank her and I credit her for becoming the man that I would eventually become. But despite all that, as you know, found myself in prison for 2 years at the age of 29 because I was playing both sides. Yeah, I had a college degree and I had the ability to make, legal money, but it wasn't enough in my mind. I always wanted more. I always knew I wanted more. I didn't know how I was going to go about getting it. And I reverted back to some of the unhealthy behaviors that I learned growing up in the hood, which was to hustle to get the difference. So that was a trying time again, but I framed it early on as the best thing that ever happened to me. And that is something that's so powerful. As you know, it's how do we frame the challenges that we're facing? And you've faced that since birth, and you've had some of the same upbringing in terms of love and support. And that's carried you through your challenges and made them triumph. So kudos to you.
Well, I certainly do appreciate that, my friend. And, one of the questions I was excited to ask you is, Sean, I think not enough people put deposits in the account of gratitude, my friend. One of the reasons I wanted to start this podcast is because, as I said, there had to be more that brings us together than separates us, my friend. So what does it mean to you to put a deposit in the account of gratitude, my friend? What does that mean to you?
It is as simple as the expression that we've heard all our lives. Is the glass half full or is the glass half empty? And when we choose gratitude, we're saying that the glass is half full. And by depositing gratitude, as you so beautifully put it, into that cup that's half full, we start to fill it even more. And gratitude is just the awareness that things are not going to be perfect or maybe even not be going our way. But we've made the choice as human beings to look at the positive aspects of whatever it is that we're dealing with, going through, or just faced with. For instance, I had a guest earlier today that we were shooting, and they practiced gratitude while stuck in traffic. And that may seem like the simplest, silliest way to put it. But if you can find gratitude being stuck in New York City traffic, then you can find it anywhere. And it's just a testament to perspective and how we're looking at the world. So gratitude gives us the ability to be thankful. And by being thankful, it's very hard to be stuck in a state of sadness, depression, or victimhood. So gratitude is probably the most powerful tool that anyone has at their disposal if they're aware of it and know how to use it.
Good, but Sean, I wanted to ask you about something because we share something in common. Until the day I die, my friend, I'll be a mother's boy, and anything my mother says, she tells me to jump, and I tell her how high, my friend. So I wanted to ask you to drill down on what your mother means to you specifically. I know you mentioned to it in your previous answers, but I'm wondering how your connection with your mother helped to shape the person you are today, my friend.
I said love, so I'm not going to use that word again, but that's the number one thing. I think what makes us human is love, and I was fortunate enough to experience that from a young age from somebody with a huge heart. And I'm getting emotional just thinking about it because she is the source of love. And the second word would be compassion. My mom was somebody who would feed you, clothe you, and give you a place to stay if you needed it. And plenty of people benefited from that. And I saw that growing up early on as a child. And it's no mistake that you asked me this question, and no one else has ever asked me this question, brother. And the reason being is I just came back from an amazing event, and we were at the Breakers Hotel in Palm Beach, Florida, which is old money, big money, the place to be in Palm Beach, which is a very well-off place in the country and in Florida. And I had the opportunity to bring my mom there for a day. And she doesn't get around very well, so I got to wheel her around in a wheelchair. And she was in awe at the hotel. And this is the gratitude. We got to do lunch together. And we had to have a conversation. We got to have a conversation that we had never had before. And I thanked her for her heart and her compassion and for her just being who she was. And she's so proud. And I'm so proud of her. And the reason being is we've come so far. Mm-hmm. To say that I'm from Parkside Projects and to say that I've spent time in jail and to be at the Breakers in Palm Beach with some amazing people that I got to share a room and ideas and thoughts with just is an absolute testament to the power of love, compassion, and belief. There's magic in the world, and we just have to believe that there's magic in the world in order to make it come to fruition. And that all started with her. So just thank her. I thank her, and I can't thank her enough because she is the reason that I was able to step into the man that I am today.
Well, I tell you, our mothers are the center of everything we do, aren't they?
If you have a good one, they are.
Yeah, absolutely. And my friend, I know that you have a particular philosophy when it comes to adversity and overcoming adversity, but I want you to share that with me. But I also want you to tie how do you think overcoming adversity and sort of inspiration are interconnected. What are your thoughts there?
Well, you've got to have hope. And no matter how dark the time is or seems, without a glimmer of hope, it's complete darkness. But hope is the light that creates the inspiration for you to then have the adversity to overcome whatever the world is throwing at you or will throw at you. And that comes through stacking wins. I've said it repeatedly. It's like being in the gym. The process of building muscle is you literally breaking down the fibers so that they can build themselves up stronger and more resilient. Life is no different. Adversity and overcoming them is just like going to the gym and building muscle. The only difference is when you go to the gym, you're doing it on purpose. Now, most adversity that people face in the beginning is not chosen. It's just the world throwing challenges at them. But if they're able to keep that hope and that inspiration, they're able to build the muscle to overcome adversity. And then as we strive for better, we create goals and dreams for ourselves. It's then when we choose to go into the fire, knowingly and willingly, that we face adversity head on. And that's when magic happens. That's when we become powerful beyond our beliefs. So getting uncomfortable is the only way to grow, but getting uncomfortable on purpose can only be done through stacking wins of overcoming adversity and challenges early on.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the ways that you're committed to doing that, my friend, I know that you're on a mission to help transform 10 million inner city students into real life success stories, my friend. So tell me about the mission, how it's going, and why it's important to you, my friend.
Well, the mission is to impact the lives of 10 million inner city youth through our Real Mentors program. And REAL stands for REAL, Real Examples Altering Lives. People from my community are very reluctant to listen to others who don't come from their community because there's no synergy, there's no similarities. So coming from where I come from, being through what I've been through, and struggling and overcoming through the adversities that I've been through and overcome, I just feel called to share my message of both hope and to plant seeds of knowledge from all the lessons that I've learned along the way. So years ago, in prison, I wrote that my destiny was to give back, to give hope to the hopeless, to plant seeds in neighborhoods like the ones that I came from. And while it was just an idea in a notebook 17 years ago, I've since exercised that in not only my daily practice of just being kind and gracious and supportive and loving to anyone that I come in contact with, excuse me. It was actually to go back and form a program that would teach students the things that school won't. Those things include financial literacy, the power of dreaming big and thinking big, relationship capital, and who you surround yourself and how important that is, and the power of belief. Belief is the end all be all for me. And I just think there's a lack of belief and there's a lack of hope and there's an obvious lack of knowledge as to how people from my community can overcome the challenges that they're faced with very early on. So those challenges can serve to do two things. They can beat you into submission, or they can serve to be the fuel that drives your life forward. But without mentors and mentorship and leaders coming back and planting seeds and spending time and money to lift others up, it's just not going to happen, brother. Not in my opinion. There's too much of a reliance on external forces that are going to come save us somehow, like a Marvel superhero. The government's going to come and change things. If they wanted to, they would have done that a long time ago. And I believe it's on people like myself, entrepreneurs, and everyday people who are familiar with the struggle to lift those who look like us and who grew up like us, to come back and lift those up who are lacking in hope, lacking in good examples, lacking in mentors, lacking in male role models. And I aim to be all of those things and seek out more people like myself with the same purpose to bring them into the fold. And we will be the Avengers of sorts, but for good in our communities, not fighting monsters and, extraterrestrials from other universes that are coming to destroy Earth. The reality is we've got plenty of internal problems here in our communities, and they can only be saved by people who don't need to wear a cape to come back and be superheroes. And I'm not doing this for any other reason other than I've made it out. I've found success in the form of financial wins. I've found success in the form of love and a healthy marriage and great kids, but yet and still, I still felt empty. And the reason is that I was making it about myself, not about others. And there is a truth to the term giving is living. And at the times in my life where I have focused on giving to others, I have admittedly been better off for it. So it can be an instant conversation that we have in passing, and I will look to first listen and then offer some, if it's solicited, some helpful advice on how to maybe shift your thinking or overcome some of the doubts that we all suffer from as human beings, because of the fact that I've been through the fire and I've been at the bottom and I'm on my way to the top. And when we get to the top, we should be gracious enough to send the elevator back down for those who still need a lift.
Yeah, absolutely. And Sean, as you know, I'm a huge believer in the power of internal motivation and setting your own standard of expectations. And mentorship's important, but if you don't have a level of personal expectation or that internal motivation, it's hard to sort of turn the key of ignition into wanting to light your fire. So I'm curious, what's your view of internal motivation and how can we elevate our personal expectations and belief in ourselves, in your opinion?
Yeah, I mean, it's easy to say that some people have it and some people don't. And I'm guilty of using that term and believing that at times. But what I believe now is that every single human being has something in them that's special. They have a desire in them. They have something that they could be great at. Now, realizing that is very different. It's very different to have a desire for more and have that internal flame burning that you just mentioned and that fortitude, and someone who's just kind of blasé about getting by. And I can't explain why I have a fire and others don't. It's beyond me. But I can tell you why I think that I've been able to hold on to that idea and it has propelled me forward. It's because early on I learned from my mom that if you think you can, you can. And if you think you can't, you can't. Either way, you're right. Henry Ford is credited with saying that. I credit Ellie Rojas because that's where I heard it first. And I also remember and affectionately remember the children's book, The Little Engine That Could. I think I can, I think I can, I think I can. And that little train got up the hill with all the toys when all the other bigger trains would pass them by and not give them the time of day. And that internal fortitude, that internal belief, I honestly don't know, brother, why some people have it burning more deeply than others. But I can also say that pain is a motivating factor for that. Mm-hmm. And pain can drive you one way or the other. You can choose to hold on to that pain and be comfortable with it and stay in that place, or you can say, I am not going to feel this way anymore, and use that pain to fuel you to get out of that place. And I've been fortunate and blessed enough to do the latter. I've always known that I was meant for more. I had no freaking clue how I was going to get there, but I just always had the courage to never quit on myself. And I think that is the key. Nipsey Hussle, Nipsey Hussle has a great quote where he points to the only difference between his peers and him is that he never gave up. And that's why he named his brand and his whole image around the marathon. Because if you're running a marathon, I'm no marathon runner, but if you're running 26.2 miles, I don't know how many kilometers that is over there in Canada, but the reality is you're going to probably want to quit a bunch of times. But the people who finish don't listen to that voice. Mm-hmm. And I'm referring to the people who are running their first or second marathon, not the people who are seasoned and have done it, countless times or whatever. When faced with adversity, do you give up on yourself or do you just say, let me take one more step? Let me take one more step. And the people that succeed are the people that tap into that voice and don't give up on themselves. Even when they don't know how they're going to get to the finish line, they just keep pushing.
Yeah, absolutely. And Sean, I'm curious to know your personal motto of personal inspiration in life and how it drives you to accomplish the work you do every day. And I know that you have a podcast as well. So tell me about those two things, my friend.
Yeah, what drives me now is legacy in the form of I have two young children. One is 7, and she's just like me, strong-willed, opinionated, and doesn't take no for an answer. I don't know where she gets it from. And my little guy who's 2.5 years old, and he's fun and rambunctious like any 2.5-year-old should be. I will admittedly say that my life is about my family first and about giving second. And really, if you put those two things together, a true man, in a traditional sense, is a leader. He's a leader of his family, first and foremost. And then with the reserves, if he's somebody that has the capacity, like I know that I do, then he gives to the world. And that's where true purpose comes from. So I only not want to create a legacy within my family where my children get the best version of me, but I want to leave a legacy in the world that outlives me. I want to form foundations, organizations, and create stories that will leave a ripple effect in people's lives that will last generations so that people remember the last name Martin.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, go ahead, sir.
Your second question for the podcast, my apologies. It's the Real Mentors podcast. And the way that came about, Kevin, was I wanted to start a nonprofit, Real Success Mentors, real examples altering lives, going in and creating a curriculum, after school programs and the like. And then I started to investigate the nonprofit space. And it's very red tape oriented and it's very structured and limited to bureaucracy, red tape. And as an entrepreneur, I believe wholeheartedly that we can accomplish more in the private sector than the government can in terms of trying to make change. Because there's less regulation, there's less limitation, there's more room for creativity, and there's far more access to money if you go through the private sector than if you go through the public sector. So I shifted my desire to form a nonprofit to one day saying, well, what am I great at? And I'm great at this right here, connecting with other human beings, albeit virtually or in person, much more so. But nonetheless, my gift is people. So why not find the people in the community with nonprofits doing the work, boots on the ground, and feature them on my show, give them a platform and shine a light on the good work, God's work that they're already doing. That's my gift. And I've been able to do that. And by doing that, I've met some amazing people that have way more knowledge in the space of not-for-profits. So just like we talked about mentorship, I wanted to start a nonprofit. I have no experience in that space. So I'd have to make all the mistakes leading up to getting to success. That would take years. Or I can shine a light on people with 10 years, 15 years, 30, and even 40 years of experience in the nonprofit space. They've learned all the lessons, they've made all the mistakes, and they know how to do it right. So why not learn from them while shining a light? So we're sharing our gifts with each other in the hopes to make change. And the podcast has given not only me, but them, more importantly, a platform to do that and reach more people. And hopefully, the ultimate goal is to bring more funding and fundraising through their doors. And most recently, because this goal is ever evolving, I also have thought of the idea of plugging Real Success Mentors curriculum into existing nonprofits that are not centered around education. There's plenty of nonprofits that are centered around historical, cultural subjects. One in particular, KR3Ts, that I'm working closely with, is a dance company that's been around for 34, almost 35 years, and has none of these components, but they have the community. So how beautiful would it be to plug in all of these lessons and all of these curriculum into spaces that already have the infrastructure and help them scale and become more marketable to attract more fundraising from private sources in the private sector that can make an immediate change in how many lives they can impact. So if I can grow somebody's nonprofit 10x, meaning if they had $1 million budget, which is a hefty budget by any stretch of the imagination, and make it a $10 million budget, we could feasibly help 10 or 20 times as many people, because as you get bigger, things get more efficient and you're able to do more at a lower per person expense. So that's my goal now, is to take all the things that I've learned and incorporate that into existing non-for-profits that have the infrastructure, but maybe don't have the knowledge or the access to the people and the ideas that are going to help them 10x their vision to make more change and impact even more lives.
Yeah, Sean, there's a sign in my office that says the day that we stop learning is the day that we die. Because, my friend, I truly believe that no matter how many degrees you have on a wall, you can always learn something from a neighbor, right?
Absolutely. And the more you seek out that knowledge, and the more open you are to learning, and the idea of the simple thing, come to the conclusion that you don't know what you don't know. And I don't care how well studied you are in any particular subject, you don't know plenty of other things centered around other subjects. You may be the best entrepreneur and your personal life may be in shambles. And I've seen it time and time again. And it's those people who just lean into one thing and neglect that they could apply the same energy and drive to other areas of their life and have a more well-rounded life. It's possible. They have to believe that it is. They have to have the desire to. But why put all of your importance or all of your significance into money? Or why just dedicate your life to just your family? We all have more in us. We all have the ability to do more. But I think that we limit ourselves. And I've surrounded myself with a lot of big thinkers and big dreamers in these last few years of my life. And it's because I realized that if I surround myself with the same people, I'm going to keep thinking the same things and doing the same things and not moving my life or the world forward. So I think we owe it all to ourselves to put our thinking caps back on, open up our hearts and our minds to the ideas that we don't know it all. And we see it more than ever in opinions toward politics and toward the way that things are. And people aim to change the world and the way that it reacts to them instead of the easier approach, which is to change yourself, because when you change yourself, the world changes with you. And I think people are just naive to that, unfortunately.
Yeah, and to that point, Sean, I'm curious how you draw the correlation between self-improvement and self-confidence. And how do you think that that can help us as entrepreneurs. What are your thoughts then?
You said the connection between self-improvement and what?
Self-confidence.
Ah, well, the two go hand in hand. And when we take in new ways of being, we learn about the things that are holding us back. So I just pointed to the fact, and thank you for passing the ball back, which is that people want to blame society or the way that things are and want to shift society and culture to accommodate their limited belief structures or their limited ability for change. Instead, by improving the self, we are then changing our minds. And by changing our minds, we are learning how to navigate the world as it is better. Because just from a common sense perspective, what's easier to change, the world or yourself? And I don't think that there's too many people that, given an honest opportunity to answer that without judgment, would say that it's easier to change the world. Because the world is already a living organism with cultures and belief systems that are beyond one person or even a community's ability to change. It's much easier to shift yourself and your way that you navigate the world. So those things are just integrally tied into each other without a doubt, because self-improvement is what allows for that self-confidence. And once you change yourself, first mentally, then you can change anything in your life. You can change the relationships in your life. You can change your physical abilities in life. I'm a guy who's weighed 350 pounds, not once, but twice in his life. At two different points in my life, I weighed 350 pounds. I tell the story that I've lost over a ton of total poundage in my life because I've always wanted to be in a better physical state, more so like I am now than at any other point in my life. And the only way that I was able to do that was through self-improvement, which then gave me the tools and the knowledge to understand that, oh, the reason I keep gaining all the weight back is because my identity's still tied into the guy I used to be. And the guy I used to be is not the guy who lives in the future. So I had to create this identity of myself in order to put that guy to sleep and start moving toward this new version of myself. And that gives you the ultimate self-confidence to look at old pictures of myself. I'm just using a physique as an example. But if you put a picture of how you thought 10 years ago, 5 years ago, 6 months ago, and you compared it to the way that you thought now, if you're making forward progress, those things would give you the confidence to understand that, oh, wait, progress is being made. Can it be made quicker? Yes, but it's being made nonetheless. And by admitting that and acknowledging that, you're giving yourself the self-confidence to continue moving forward.
Yeah, and Sean, I've got one follow-up and then three quick questions to finish with, my friend. And you know, one of the things I wanted to ask you about is the importance of healing what I call societal divisions and creating more bridges of unity, my friend. So when you look at America today, you know, I look at America from afar living in Canada, and it seems that more people are more interested in being right than coming to a compromise. You know, if you don't agree with someone, they tend now to go into sort of their silos or their corners of belief system, my friend. So how do you think we can get back to the art of compromise and having conversations again? How do we heal divisions in your view, my friend?
That is a big question. And it is one that I'm going to attempt to answer as best that I can. How do we do that seemingly impossible thing where people agree to disagree again? And it's by having these conversations, brother, in person, face to face, and with compassion. And I think that has been forever changed by our smartphones and by social media and the internet. Because We are fed repeatedly what we believe. And I don't think that Americans or any other countries for that matter are more divided than they've ever been. That's the first thing people tell you is, oh, well, it's more divided than it's ever been. I think that we get polarized because the more extreme the view, the more juicy it is. It's like gossip, right? Mm-hmm. So, we're all guilty of gossip, salaciousness. Ooh, like the whole P. Diddy thing is juicy as fuck these days because there's so much scandal behind it and who's on the tapes and who is this and who's that. That's what leads. And there's a saying, if it bleeds, it leads in the news. The news, the media, social and otherwise, is guilty for polarizing us to the point where we believe that we're more divided than ever. I don't think human nature is ever more divided. I just think that we're retreating more to our corners of information that we receive because the tools that we have to gather information are manipulated to keep us on those platforms for longer periods of time. So if they're not selling you anything, beware because you're the product. And we're all the products on social media, which is a necessary, amazing platform. And I use it to my advantage, and so do you. And we're doing that at this moment. However, what are we using it for? Are we using it to spread gossip, or are we using it to mend bridges? So much to what you just said, and I appreciate it. And what a lovely way to put it. I choose to build bridges. I choose to say, yes, that's your political view. I'm dead center because I give all power to myself and to God and the universe. I do not give power to politics or to people other than myself. And I think people need to get back to themselves, and by looking inward and then also looking upward to God and a higher power, which I think is also a big reason we're disconnected from that belief and that faith and that connection to the universe, God, Jesus Christ, Allah, whatever you believe. Connecting to a higher source, leading with compassion, will then bring your fellow man and woman to the table for a meaningful conversation where you can walk away and say, I disagree with you, but I respect and love you nonetheless. Now let's go break bread, because there's no politician out there that gives two shits about us more than we do about each other. And I think that's been lost because if you look at this generation of younger kids, they look at their phones, they text. You can call them, they'll be right there and not want to answer the phone. And that art of human communication, the thing that makes us human, has been infiltrated to a degree that I hope, but the pessimistic side of me thinks, is never going to be the same. Because we don't break bread around the fire or the dinner table like we used to. We look to our phones, guilty as charged, when we wake up in the morning and before we go to sleep at night. And all the way in between. I mean, what is your screen time hours? It's hard to find a person who's not at least at a minimum of 4 to 5 hours a day screen time on their phones alone, not to mention the TV running in the background, the laptop they're working on or working through. So, I don't know that the world's ever going to change back to what it used to be. Probably not. But if we can value human interaction like we used to, that is the beginning step to building those bridges of understanding. And I don't think America's the only one plagued with this problem right now. I think many countries around the world, many people around the world have been infiltrated by this culture of division because they're a product and they don't know it.
And Sean, just before I ask you my last question, I'm gonna selfishly ask you a question in my own interest, my friend. So, from our previous meeting, my friend, my story about being born with cerebral palsy and being told at the age of 9 that I wouldn't be able to walk for the duration of my life because of the severity of my disability. And when I was born 3 months premature, and I wasn't supposed to live past 3.5. And when I graduated journalism school, Sean, I was rejected by 10 consecutive news directors who told me that I was qualified for a job, but because of my disability, they refused to hire me. And over there in America, Sean, the unemployment rate for folks with disabilities is double that of their non-disabled counterparts, my friend. So how do you think we can change the culture of inclusivity in the workforce for people with disabilities to give them more of an opportunity to find prosperity, my friend? What are your thoughts there?
I think we need more people like you, Kevin. Um, I don't know who your allies are and whether there are more people like you, but I would implore you to seek them out because I know how much passion you have for this subject. And I'm admittedly ignorant to how we could go about that. But it circles back to your last question, which is to tap into the humanity inside of us, that we're all human beings. We're all created by God. We all put our pants on one leg at a time, and we all bleed red. And there's a big movement for equity in this country, and it's not necessarily equity for people with disabilities. And honestly speaking, people with disabilities are probably lower on the rung of concern and attention than other groups looking for equity. So it's going to be up to people like yourself and, you know what? People like me and others who care and who give a damn. So if I can be a vessel and I can help move your message forward, it's the same reason I jumped on this podcast, even though we've had to delay once or twice, and I apologize. It's because I believe so strongly that you are a testament to resilience and purpose. And while we don't know each other that well, I know you've got levels inside of you that you haven't realized yet. And I'd throw that question back to you and say, how do you feel that we can do that? Because I'd be game for it as well.
Well, the first thing I tell business people when I give speeches about the subject is that people with disabilities have to pay taxes too, right? And there's no, having a disability, you can't bring it back to a department store and say you want 50% off, right? So
Right.
I think it starts with creating a commitment within an organization to make it a priority, and also putting people with disabilities in leadership roles, because people with disabilities have had to be problem solvers all of their lives, right? And if you hire people with disabilities, your organization becomes more innovative because it's a more innovative way to solve problems. And I tell people when I talk to them about this subject, it's not charity; it's a competitive advantage for your business because you're willing to think outside of the box and get out of your comfort zone, and embrace diversity as a competitive advantage. So it starts with more education and creating more opportunities, in my view, my friend.
And I'm grateful for your mission. And, as somebody who's admittedly naive about the struggles that you faced and people with disabilities face, I'm in awe at your resilience. And coming from a capitalist society on the American side of the border, as opposed to you on the Canadian side, there has to be incentives for employers too, because there's been incentives to do other things within corporations. So why not have incentives to hire people with disabilities here? Because it is a capitalist society, selfishly enough. I jokingly say when I meet Canadians, it's like, how come you guys get America more right than we do? And I think you look at it from more of a compassionate sense than a dollars and cents sense. Excuse the double sense over there. But again, that's just my limited knowledge of the subject, and I'm coming from a well-rounded human approach to it as opposed to the QuickBooks, reasoning behind it. But I can't see why, and I love the explanation, which again I admittedly never thought of, which is it's a competitive advantage. Like you hire someone coming out of the military because they have structure, they have discipline, and they have skills. and they have the ability to overcome things. Disabilities are no different, but they're viewed differently. So we need more people to shine a light on it for sure. And thank you for your mission and doing so in your community, because it's needed. And you need to find more allies, bigger voices, and more money, because love it or hate it, that's what makes the world and especially this country go round. It's finances and money.
Yeah.
And, I've embraced that honest truth, because I know that I can make more change with bigger checks than just big heart and purpose.
Well, it's certainly a practical and realistic way to look at it, for sure. And Sean, I want to get you out of here on this question, my friend. I'm curious to get your definition of how you define prosperity and how you think it's interconnected to hope, my friend. What are your thoughts there?
Prosperity and hope. I think everybody wants to prosper, but there's a large segment of any population, usually the disenfranchised or the impoverished, that lacks hope. And they've given up on the idea of being prosperous or having prosperity. I think that we're all God's children, and we were all designed for a life of abundance. I've been blessed with that belief from early on, the desire to want more. And it's not necessarily money. I consider it a good type of greed. I want more of a strong relationship with my family, with my loved ones, with my friends and colleagues. And I want more peace of mind. I want the financial wins as well. So I'm greedy, but I consider it to be greed in a good sense. And I think we all deserve that prosperity. But it's only my hope and my fire that has led me to that place. And I want to go plant those seeds of hope and belief so that people can believe and chase the prosperity that they know in their hearts they want, but give up on all too early because there's not enough examples of people coming where they come from and actually attaining the prosperity that we're talking about. So I think the two are hand in hand in that you can't have prosperity without first having hope. And you can't have hope without having seeds planted. And I think it's on people like yourself to go plant those seeds of hope to other people with disabilities, and then go out there and with your army, you have a better likelihood of reaching that prosperity that you're all looking for. And the same story on my end with inner city youth that come from poverty. Let's go plant those seeds. Let's let them know that they deserve that prosperity and show them, more importantly, how to attain it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Sean, I want to give you the chance to tell me if people want to get connected with you, buddy, or listen to the podcast. What's the best way they can do that?
So right now, best way to find us is on Instagram. We're The Sean Martin, TheSeanMartin, SeanMartinSpeaker.com. We've also got a book coming out called Beyond the Bronx, From Streets to Suites. That'll be touching down in the first quarter of 2025, so stay tuned for that. BeyondTheBronxBook.com will give you more updates on that. And then the podcast, lastly, is called The Real Mentors Podcast, and you can find us on all platforms, Spotify, Apple Music, YouTube's a big format for us as well. So just type in Sean Martin Speaker, Sean Martin Motivation, and we'll pop up instantly. You can find us on all of the platforms after a good Google search.
Well, absolutely. I mean, you can find anything on Google, right? But absolutely, my friend. Well, I have to tell you, I thoroughly enjoyed our time together, my friend. I've been looking forward to engaging in conversation with you, and I want to thank you for the good work that you're doing to provide both prosperity and inspiration to inner city youth and mentors all across the country, my friend. I want to thank you for your time and for engaging in conversation with me this afternoon. It's most appreciated.
Well, you're appreciated, brother. I thank you for your courage and your heart and the mission that you're on, and showing us all that we've got very little to complain about, and we've got even fewer excuses that limit us. So God bless you, brother. I appreciate you.